Welcome to Tent Talk, the podcast with Nancy McCready, where we talk about life under the big tent of God's presence and the provoking process of discipleship. Here we go.
Welcome back to this series of conversations on slow fire formation. This is where the Father's house becomes the forging place, because He is the fire. And when we come into His house, when we stay in His house, we stay at His table, then it is not just a point of introduction at the table. This is where being a part of His vast family of sons begins to really take shape. There are conversations that initially can begin to feel much like a confrontation, but you begin to learn that the Father always speaks and then sets out to accomplish in you exactly what He wrote down. So let's establish in this, if you will, for a short title, just simply Forged in the Fire of Sons. That slow fire that we talk about, it's the Father's presence in you, in me. So I left off last time talking about, stay on the anvil. Stay in that place, though it feels as though it's just a hammering place. Have you ever been at a table where conversations are happening and you feel like you're just getting hammered? And everyone says, oh, it's just constructive criticism, and you feel like they're stabbing you with an ice pick. Does anybody understand? I know it seems a little dramatic, but doesn't it all feel a little dramatic when it's happening to you, no matter how much someone may say, oh no, I'm just sharing this for your benefit. And they may truly be, and it may be Father directed, but what you're experiencing as the receiver of those conversations is maybe different from those who are the speaking ones in the conversation. Yet now, you see, we are truly at the Father's table, and this is where forming, shaping, this is where breaking happens, breaking at His table. Breaking of every old filter that makes it almost impossible to hear what is truly being said. Because these conversations take place in private. There are conversations that they want to have with us. Yet Jesus often said, but you're not ready for them. You will be, but you're not yet. And I want to be one who says, Father, you get me ready for the things that you want to share with me, the things you want to trust me with. I know you, Father, have to be the one to get me ready. Because you see, discipleship does not begin in public ministry. It begins in private, in the deepest place of your being, in spirit, when you're born again. So it begins in being birthed. It continues as you learn that you belong. Jesus was a son before He was revealed. So 30 years of a hidden life with the Father. And no, we don't have the specifics of all of that. Just like many others will not have the specifics of what you and the Father have in that secret place where He waits for you. So Jesus was being formed. He was learning obedience through the things that He endured, the things that He suffered. And so it will be for us. So 30 years hidden, catch this, 30 years hidden, then 3 years in public. And the ratio matters. That ratio matters. It's like when we say, oh yeah, those stupid, Israelites wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. Well, now as a 65-year-old person, right, I can tell you, I think I can feel a little bit more, of a bond with them. I've wandered on some things for a long, long time. And now you can see where it can be possible. And the slow fire is about the real work of growing up, the real work of maturing into, right? That when fruit matures, well, it was always that, even within its seed form. But think about all the processing, everything that has to happen, everything that is set in motion to actually bring that fruit forward. Now let's shift that into what it takes to really bring a person forward. You know, when we're young in the Lord and we see things, we think, I got it. And then later you're like, I lost it, I think. I'm not sure what happened. I was so full of myself, so full of zeal. And it's as things ripen and mature and you learn the Father's love and you learn His voice and His ways. And you say, okay, Father, I see now. Every inch of this has been necessary. And Father, don't bring me out of hiding until you know that I'm ready. I'm not looking for anything public, Father, until you say so. That can be the sound of a maturing son. You know, the scripture tells us in the book of Luke that Jesus grew in wisdom, stature, and favor at home. Home. Wow. Talk about fire. Home is where we can't hide like we do when we're in public. Home is where moods erupt and old dysfunctional communication patterns are constantly keeping, things at bay because we don't talk about them, we don't address them. Or as soon as the conversation gets a little too heated, we shut it down. But when we're at His table being forged in His fire, I would submit to you, these are things we can't really afford to indulge anymore. The Father understands the pain and understands what it's costing, all of that, but He's attempting to bring you out into wide open places where those things will not still be present. And it's hard sometimes for us to even imagine such a place. But that's because we've not yet gone with Him. He's well able. Jesus grew in wisdom, stature, favor with God and with man in His home where He was daily. Because the Father's house is not soft. Now, it is the most comfortable place there is in His presence. But that doesn't mean that it's soft and keeps the bumper pads on the crib. It doesn't keep the bubble wrap around you, the bubble wrap of denial. You see, the Father's house, it's formative. It's a furnace of formation. But if you know Him, and He is that consuming fire, He is that forge, then though it may not be pleasant, you want to be with Him. And you say, Father, I endure this because I want to be with you. And so it is with a bladesmith's shop. A bladesmith's shop is not gentle. There's a place a few miles from where I live, and it even hosts a competition called Forged by Fire. It's a old blacksmith shop, and it's recently moved into more of a modern building. And I liked it when it was in the old building, and I've been once, I think. Since it's in the new building, it doesn't quite carry the same attractiveness, maybe, or the quaintness, we might say, of generations past. But I guarantee you, it's still producing, and it's very purposeful because they know what they're doing. And though they will allow people to come in and, novices to come in and like make their own knife or something, you can rest assured there's a master bladesmith standing right there, letting them share in the experience, but they're not there to play because they know their instruments, they know the tools of their trade, and they are masters at it. And they're very purposeful in that. So I don't need a bladesmith's shop to be like a boutique. I need it to be exactly what it is. And in this day and hour, we need the Father's house to be exactly what it was meant to be. And there's a part of me, and I'm ever talking to the Father about this, that when I see people trying to form and fashion sometimes the Father's house according to political correctness, or according to let's don't offend anyone, I'm like, well, nobody's going to be growing then. I mean, the Father himself offends me. He offends my mind to reveal my heart. And so when he says something to me, it's like, Father, I can't believe you're going to talk to me like this. He's like, well, Nancy, of course I'm going to talk to you like this. I'm your Father, right? Jesus' name is truth. Of course he's going to tell me the truth. And when I stop trying to get them to buffer it all down, to blunt the blade, if you will, and let them do it, I find they have this amazing way. It's not like being stabbed by a human. It's like the best hit you'll ever take, the best cut, because everything with them is producing. And sometimes when I read certain things and, everybody wants, our leaders and people to behave, and yet I'm like, but how you speak to people in private, it just sometimes we wax too clever. And we need what the Father's doing. And he will use different hammers. He will use different things. Sometimes it's to teach us not to trust people that we thought were for us. Sometimes it is to sharpen our discernment where it concerns us and relationship patterns that we keep indulging. So sometimes it is so that we can discern with every step we take who we will engage with and who we will not. Not in the sense that we are so fragile that we can't deal with things, but because not everything is as it appears, and only the Father can teach a son how to discern in that way. And then, of course, he is going to definitely be cutting us away from our own flesh and the ways that we have operated and the things that we have believed in our independence from him. It's not just because someone else taught me that. That was in the flesh already, because the mind of the flesh is hostile to God, even in all of its goodness. So I didn't need anybody to do anything in particular for me to have an attitude of hostility towards truth. It was going to develop one way or the other. And so often we're still blaming others rather than let's get to the core of what it is that the Father is dealing with. Let his fire, let his ways come and separate out flesh from spirit. Let Holy Spirit make those things very, very clear in the fire. A.W. Tozer said, and I do love his quotes, A.W. Tozer said that God cannot use someone greatly until he has dealt with them deeply. So true. And those dealings almost always happen in hidden places. Now, there might be one or two people that God has put in your life that may be a part of those deep dealings. But that's usually going to be, those one or two people are going to be people that they themselves have been dealt with deeply. So they take no pleasure in it. They're not trying to win an argument. They're not trying to be proven right. They're not trying to keep their network in line. They're not trying to, serve their own purposes. They've come to a place of deep loyalty with the Father. And they know we all came in the same condition, and we all are capable of acting like total idiots. And when people begin to evolve and they become so intellectual and they become this and that, and, and then they're going to tell, you're just like, hold on. Haven't we all been pompous idiots? Have we not yet seen what we ourselves are capable of? And that being because of the condition we were born in, not just because of childhood, not just because of the lack of certain things or the overprotection of other things. The bottom line is that God is going to have to deal with all of us by the way of the cross and the work of the cross, because we all came in the same condition. So even those that I might have this sense of as I see them, I'm the first one that could say, sure, I've been high and mighty before and fallen. Yes. That does not mean that you don't address those things, but you address them out of the truest empathy of all, which is I'm fully capable of it. The Father has dealt deeply and continues to deal deeply. Not all the deep dealings are done with. Oh, the fire of His presence. And I thank God for His ways that if He speaks to me in private, He says, we can deal with this right here in private. But if I resist, which I certainly have in the past, He says, well, now your resistance has required that I'm going to need to bring somebody else in on this because you're not listening. And I love you too much to just be done with you. And see, as far as I continue to resist, means that the Father is required by my resistance to enlarge the circle of exposure. The Father would rather always whisper and things be heeded, but that doesn't happen. Because when sin comes on the scene, this unholy power from hell, it will puff you up like a Macy's Day Parade float, and you will swag around like you're the most brilliant and profound orator of all time. And the Father says, now I'm about to have to pop that big balloon. But it's going to be because I love you, and those that are going to be there when you fall to the ground are going to be those that have already been dealt with. No one's going to be laughing. No one's going to be mocking. They may be grieved, but they know because they came through the same way. You see, the Father is forging in His house, in His presence, true sons. Let me remind you, discipleship is sonship, and discipleship without a father becomes performance. Discipleship without the cross becomes intellectual fodder. But you see, sonship, in our oneness with the Father, it produces deep rest. Not the stress and strain of a performance. And it knows how to rest even under the demand of the requirement. And you don't graduate, from sonship into ministry. You don't graduate from the hidden place into the public place. You will do everything you do from your privileged place as a son. Jesus heard His Father say, "This is my beloved Son," before He ever did His first miracle. The Father was pleased because Jesus had yielded to all the training and discipline and wisdom and love, and was coming forward as a true human son. You see, identity precedes the assignment. You have to know that you're His. If we're not careful, identity becomes some kind of Christianized self-esteem. It'll never bring you to the Father. You just become totally into yourself. The true sonship identity means I belong to Him. I was chosen out by Him for Himself. And it's important to know that it will be then His voice in that fire that will keep you there. If it's not the Father's voice that anchors you, then the crowd's voice will own you. Any imposter, con man that comes along, any false apostles, false prophets, false, will be able to lure you away and say, why would you have to endure any of that? That's ridiculous. So I want to encourage you. Remember, we're staying on God's calendar. Enjoy your holidays, but do not yield to any other voice or time frame except the Father's. Because remember, my friends, it won't be long, and it'll be January 2nd, then January 15th, and so oftentimes the vibes of the holidays begin to drive us. We would say, oh, I spent more than I meant to spend, and I did things I didn't mean to do, and I became lax, and oh, really, that sounds like what the power of sin does. I mean, I'm having to face this. I mean, I'm thinking about these things. Are you? Because I don't want to loosen my grip on who I am to Him. I don't want to relax and then have to deal with all of the aftermath. There's a deep rest and a deep recreation, a deep relaxation that comes, my friends, in His yoke. I don't have to go outside of it to get it. So whereas before I said stay, on the anvil, I say to you now, just stay in the house, because that's where sons are forged in the fire of the Father's presence, and it is quite a forming process needed now. So I love you all. Until next time.
For more information on Nancy, please visit nancymccready.com or follow her on social media at NBMcCready.